And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Soul Survivor podcast. Ryan and I are back to recap the penultimate episode of Survivor Season 46 and preview the Survivor 46 finale. I cannot believe we are already here. What is up, Ryan?
Dylan, I cannot believe that we are almost done with the season. It started slow, but I feel like in these last few weeks, it's been so good. It's sped up. In honor of Q, I have finally put on a Q skirt, so I've got that on. But yeah, no, we're excited to talk about this episode where history for the idol continues.
Unbelievable. Q goes home with an idol in his pocket, right? First of all, before we even get into the whole idol thing, let me just say, Q, truly a legendary character of this game. I've been rooting for him the whole season. Very disappointed that he goes out this way, but based on the way the season's going, it seems fitting. Man, I really thought that once they showed all the votes, that he was for sure going to play the idol. I know they were hinting towards like him not playing it, because they were like showing that, Kenzie and Liz were not going to go with Marie and Q. And I was like, they're hinting at him going out with an idol in his pocket. And then they showed all the votes. I was like, oh, he's definitely going to play the idol and avoid all the votes. Didn't happen. Really frustrating to see. We got a little bit of an explanation from him in the exit press this week. So we talk about that as well. But yeah, I mean, if there was anybody that absolutely has to be a lock for season 50, it is Q.
Yeah, no, I mean, these conversations are going to keep happening over these next, several months, especially heading into next year when they go to film season 50. But yeah, Q's got to be top of the list for new era returning options. I think just the entertainment that he brought, to kind of see him almost act as Banu's coach early in the season, to see him just kind of devolve into the chaos and the Liz reward choice and the Q skirt and canceling Christmas and the smoke screens. He just provided so much entertainment. I'm sure Jeff and production loved what they got from him. So would not surprise me if Q is towards that top for people to bring back. But yeah, like you said, really sad and crazy that he did not play his idol after all that.
Yeah, and let me just say, me and you both on this podcast throughout the entire season were very hesitant to use the drawing dead card on Q because I felt like there was still a path that could provide him and lead him to a win in this season. And we literally saw the exact path that he needed to happen to play out. It was the perfect storm for him. And that is why I was like so extra bummed at him going out here, is because I was like, he actually had a chance to win the game. Because guess what? It looked like the people on the jury actually did respect that he was able to stay alive for so long. So I think it is possible he could have pulled in the votes. Plus, he would have had the big move, the biggest move of the season right here. So it's crazy. The stars actually aligns for Q. First, he finds the idol, which props to him. Also, let me just say, Q had some unbelievable confessionals this episode. One when he found the idol, hilarious. And the other, he had some kind of quote. I need to get the exact wording, but it was something like, we're on Earth, but we can't see Venus anymore, or something like that, which was beyond hilarious. Yeah. Literally finds the idol. All he had to do was play the idol here and ensure his safety. There's only 2 more times you could play the idol at 6 and 5. Play the idol, get out the biggest threat in the game in Charlie, and then you have that move on your resume, and you're in the final 5, and you never know what could happen. 1, they always rehide an idol at final 5. You could always find it again. And 2, you know what? Maybe Q would win the challenge. There is a chance, but it's crazy. He rolled the dice, he gambled, and it came back to bite him. He goes home with an idol in his pocket. There's just so much to talk about on this vote, but like the one thing that keeps sticking with me is that Q actually legitimately had a shot to win this game if he played this idol.
Yeah, no, I think we were, like you said, hesitant to say drawing dead because Q did have a path. And I think he got, like you said, too cute with it, where he tried to say, well, if I could just make it to the final 5 vote, I can guarantee final 4. Obviously, people that try to make it last a little longer sometimes blows up in their face. I think my biggest problem, Dylan, is I have 2 critiques, one for Q and one for Maria. I think for Q, it's like, I don't know how you thought after all of that you had Liz and Kenzie on your side. Like, yeah, you and Maria were going to gun for Charlie this week. But I mean, for you to rely on Liz and Kenzie's vote, two people that have been very vocally against you, you're relying on them to see Charlie as a bigger threat than you, and Charlie is a bigger threat than Q to win the game. But I just feel like he should not have just believed, oh, I got Liz on my side. And for Maria, Dylan, I actually blame Maria a little bit more for this too, because on one hand, Q should have seen this coming and played the idol, just keep it simple, lock yourself in final five. But I saw someone say this on Twitter, and it's so interesting how if Maria just said, I want to guarantee Charlie goes out, just have Q play his idol, you guarantee Charlie goes home. You also then keep Q in the final five as a shield for you if you lose immunity. And then you're at the final four, potentially with Liz, Ben, and Q at that point, I believe, right? So it's like at that point, Maria's path, and Maria's a big threat next week, but that was her clear path too. So I blame Q for not using it, but I feel like Maria, whether or not she wanted Q to use it correctly or burn it, I feel like having Q use it there was a real slam dunk for her.
Yeah, we could do a whole podcast on the wrong moves of this episode from several players. Maria was one of them. I mean, I've been saying it all week, and as soon as I watched the episode, your social game, at the end of the day, Survivor's a social game, right? So it's a social game first before anything else. And your social game is going to carry you as like your strategic game could only go as far as your social game goes, as your social game could take you. And it's just so abundantly clear to me, and I'm sure to everybody else watching, that Charlie is running laps around Maria in terms of social game. And it's crazy because, one, like you just said, how did Maria and Q think that Kenzie and Liz were automatically going to be with them? Like, why did they think that? They were, I think, Maria especially, and I blame her because it was, at the end of the day, this was going to be like her big move, getting out Charlie. How do you not want to guarantee yourself that this move works? You remove all doubt if Q plays the idol because you're wearing the necklace. So you remove all doubt. 100% if Q plays the idol, then that move is working, right? So that's the one thing, is I feel like, Maria, the fact that she was unable to sniff out that Kenzie and Liz even could potentially flip on them, and for Q not to play his idol. And again, even if Q wrongly plays the idol, it's still flushed from Q. He's still available to go home next week because you just had him play it, right?
Yeah.
Crazy. I think, it was a brutal move. And for Charlie, when I say Charlie's playing laps around Maria in social game, I mean, Kenzie and Liz were, they end up going with Charlie here and against Maria and against Q. So Charlie wins that battle. He gets the people in the middle to work with him over Maria and Q. And you could even make an argument that he gets Kenzie to make the wrong move here, right? I think if you're thinking about Kenzie's best path to win, it's not against Charlie, right? So I think it was actually probably the right move for Kenzie to make this blindside with Maria and Q, and especially with Maria having the necklace, ignore Q. And I've said several times in this podcast, I said, Kenzie, if she loses this game, she's going to lose because her social game was impeccable, but it's one mistake and blind spot was being too hung up on Q, right? She was unable to remove the personal aspect of wanting to get Q out, literally all up until this vote, because I think it's an easy opportunity to make the move on Charlie here, get him out of the game, worry about Maria next week at final five first, and then Q, if he gets to final three, you're beating Q, Kenzie. You're beating Q in the final three, right? So I think not only does Charlie, get Kenzie and Liz to work with him, he also gets them to, work with them and make the wrong move, but the right move for his game. So Charlie has really played a masterclass game this season. I think, it's easily possible that he could go out at final five. It's easily possible that he could go out at final four. But up until this point, he has played an absolute masterclass social game. It's up there with one of the better ones we've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, I think it's so tough because I feel like, and I've been guilty of this before in the past, and I've tried to separate them. There's a difference between great gameplay and flashy gameplay. And in a perfect world, Dylan, we get people like Tony or people like, Boston Robert, people who like are very flashy, great players. And then you have people like, your Michelles and Kim Spradlins who are also winners, but they're not as flashy. They're just really great social players and they're positioned really well. And I think Charlie obviously falls into that camp. Is Charlie, and I said this last week, is he the most entertaining TV? No, he's not. But like in this season where you've had a lot of crazy characters, a lot of bad gameplay, funny moments, I feel like Charlie's positioning and threat level management has been so underreported, like you're kind of commenting on, because the fact that, and I looked at the stats on this, so many times, if a person wins 2 immunity challenges before the final 8, their chances of getting targeted go up exponentially. And most of those people don't go on to win the game, let alone make it to final 3 because they get targeted. And Charlie not only won his 2 challenges, basically didn't get a vote that next week. And then in this week, should have been a pretty big target. Like you said, Kenzie should have made that move and only gets 2 votes here and was never really in danger of going out. So Charlie really positioned himself well. We'll talk about it more, but he made the right reward challenge choices. And yeah, I think if he wins this game, especially, we're going to say like, D played a great new era game and maybe a bit more aggressive than Charlie did, but like D's played a great new era game. Charlie's played a great new era game and he's so well positioned. We're going to have to start talking about him as not only a great new era winner or player, but also a overall great winner or player as well. I think he's done such a good job here. And kind of like Marianne and some other winners, I feel like he's setting himself up where a lot of people will take him to the end. I feel like Ben will take Charlie to the end. Ben will want to go with him. I would have thought Kenzie, like you said, was going to turn on Charlie, but Kenzie and Charlie seem pretty locked in. Liz seems to like him. I feel like next week, if Maria goes out of 5, Charlie could either win his way there or people might possibly even bring him there. So kudos to Charlie for another great week and winning this battle against Maria.
Yeah, and we could get into winner rankings like to end this podcast, or even like later on, and we'll finish talking about this episode. But yeah, I have a lot of takes on winner rankings, so I'm excited to get those off. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Charlie again, impeccable, and it's so crazy because I think Maria's played such a good game, but she's had, this is the type of vote that I get the sense that she was way too overconfident in her position in the game. I mean, again, I cannot fathom how she did not think that there was a chance that Kenzie and Liz would flip on her, which to me, it's wild. And I mean, if you listen to Q's exit press, he said that Maria always knew where the votes were. Yeah. She always was able to, always came back and told him this person's voting for this person, and it was always correct. So Q trusted Maria one more time to be completely correct on the votes. She was not. That was the gamble he made, because Q said that if he got past this vote, then he says he was a shoo into the final 3, because according to him, he would use the idol at 5, and then even if he got put into fire, he said that there was nobody that could come close to him in fire. So that was Q's reasoning. Still, obviously disagree with it, and obviously was the wrong move. But that was his reasoning. But Maria, man, like you said, I almost feel like it was a bigger mistake for Maria than Q, because now you look at it and her big move failed, right? Charlie, without a doubt, is voting her out next time if given the opportunity. I mean, she put his name down. I don't even know what's going to happen when they get back to camp, but what could she say? It's obvious that she was the one that made the vote, right? She could be like, I tried to make the move and it failed. And then, he's still there. She's still there. It's an awkward situation. Yeah. I think that they'll be able to like respect each other for it, obviously. But, I think if Maria loses final 5, it's a no-brainer of who's going home. But at the same time, there also is that, sense that Maria is a dominant challenge player. Maybe she does win final 5. And then all of a sudden, Charlie's back in the same spot that he was with a massive threat to potentially go home at 5. So it's going to be interesting, the finale. But yeah, Maria she really tanked her chances to win with that move, or lack thereof, I should say.
Yeah. And let me give Charlie one more piece of kudos while we're kind of going through, his move this week and kind of how he's been positioning himself. I love what he did at the end of the episode, because I feel like it's these like small, subtle moves that people don't like take for granted. And it's like that actually really sets yourself up for the future, where he's like, well, yeah, I want to take out Q, but I can't completely blindside Maria, because if I blindside Maria and I become the new biggest threat in the game, like, you know, her taking out Tiffany, or again, like Omer taking out Drea or whatever, then all that could happen next week is like the women can get together and be like, oh, Charlie's the biggest threat. He took out Q. He's won 2 challenges. He's likable. And Maria can say to the girls, like, look, I know you don't like me. I know I'm a threat, but we got to get Charlie out. And then I'm screwed and I just have Ben on my side. So I love how he goes to Maria and is like, what do you think about voting out Q? And like you said, Dylan, Maria agrees to it, but she's not really going to do it. And she obviously misreads the votes with Liz and Kenzie. But he's like at least giving her the heads up that it's coming. So now next week, he's not going to be afraid of like, oh, well, Maria and the girls are just going to team up against the guys. So I did like that little like subtle thing that he did there too.
Yeah. And I mean, just to talk about a few other cool things that happened in this episode before or I should say like good moves by Charlie, first of all, like I think he handled the reward perfectly, right? He said that him and Maria agreed to never be taking on a reward, right? So he didn't even have to worry about, you know, she was clearly extremely upset about it, but like, you know, they made that agreement and he didn't let that impact his decision. He made the correct strategic decision despite the fact that Maria was crying right in front of him, right? Takes Kenzie and Liz on the reward, and then what do you know? The two swing votes of the episode, Kenzie and Liz, he makes them solid with this vote at the reward. So I mean, again, just a masterclass by Charlie. He's really doing a great job. And then we had the moment before, right when they this was so bizarre. You know, to open the episode, right?
Oh my God, yeah.
We all were like, Kenzie just got the vote from Ben, obviously, is just a stray vote in case of an idol play. And he was like, I accidentally did it. Which was, I mean, either he accidentally did it and it's just a mind-boggling thing that happened, or he was trying to lie about it and failed incredibly at it. I was just astounded that that's how this episode opened, really.
Let me ask you a question, because I saw this on Twitter, and this might be a hot take. And I never want to read the edits, but I'm always so curious about why they're showing us what they're showing us. And like you said, Ben having a complete brain fart because he's not lying to us in confessionals. Like he voted Kenzie by accident. I don't know how. That's the first time that's ever happened in history. The only other time I feel like someone's done the whole I voted wrong was Natalie, but Natalie did that on purpose in San Juan del Sur to get like John to like convince him. I've never seen this happen before. This is so bizarre. And then we see the whole night terrors again that Ben has. Ben has like another panic attack. And we see again Kenzie's comforting him. So Dylan, like I have 2 questions for you really quickly. Number one, someone said on Twitter, do we feel like Ben, if he keeps having these night terrors, panic attacks, could we see Ben like either pull himself or gets pulled? Kind of like how Eric Reichenbach in Karamoan had like the weird, like at the start of the finale, like he got pulled automatically when the finale started due to like the sickness or dizziness. That's number one. And then number 2, even though Ben and Charlie have been in lockstep, could this be a potential hint of like if Charlie and Kenzie go head to head in the finale, could Ben actually, because of what Kenzie's done for him, give her a vote over? I'm wondering why are we seeing all this still with Charlie and with Ben and Kenzie, you think?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, and we can even get into this, and this is like a good segue to like power rankings, I guess, or winner rankings going forward. Yeah, I mean, anybody who's a diehard Survivor fan and reads the edit, it definitely sets off like a little alarm, like, well, what's going on here, right? I do think that there's, but you know, a lot of us overread the edit all the time. I think there is a decent chance that they're strictly showing this relationship. One, because one of them gets to the end, mathematically, like that's like they're not going at almost impossible at this point that they're going to go at 4 and 5, right? So one of them is going to get to the end. I'm sure that whichever one does get to the end, or maybe both, their jury speeches probably will have to do with social game and a lot of this. So I think that we could just be seeing that, even if they end up losing this game, like it makes sense. Like we'll be able to understand what they're pitching and what's going on. And the other thing is, like, I think there is a part that they're probably just trying to show like awareness to mental health and stuff. So they could just be showing that. I don't want to read too much into the edit there, but I do also think that there is a scenario where, of course, you know, Kenzie's social game, potentially winning social game is being shown to us, right? So it could go either way. So I don't want to read into it too much one way or the other, but it has been present in my mind, a lot of these things with Kenzie. You want to go right into the power rankings right now, or winner rankings? So I think we could honestly, it's already Sunday. Everybody, who's listening has already listened to a bunch of recap podcasts. Like, we'll give you, I want to focus mostly on like the finale going forward, and kind of like our winner rankings and stuff like that. I think that's the move. Here's what I would say. I think Charlie is the best chance to win. I think pretty much most people across the board would agree with that. I do think Kenzie has the second best chance. Okay. And here's why. Maria has the biggest target on her back right now. I think either she's getting voted out at 5 or going the fire at 4, one way or the other, right? She's the biggest target. People know that she's the biggest threat. They've been trying to get her out for a while. She hasn't been a villain, but we've seen the cast kind of turn on her a little bit. I feel like she's getting that final boss type edit, or like I don't want to say villain, that's the wrong word. Like, it is final boss type edit.
Boss, yeah.
The player that everybody has to overcome in order to advance their game in the end. So I don't really see her winning, but I'll give her the third best chance. And then I would probably go with a tie with Ben and Liz. I think both of them are pretty much dead. But here's why I really think that Kenzie has the second best chance. And when I say second best chance, I think that she has a decent chance. I think that somebody compared her to playing like a Michelle type game, and I think that that's accurate. Her social game's been really good. She hasn't really had a signature move, but she's been a pretty big part of every vote except for the Tiffany vote, which again was big that she was left out of that. It's not great, but she has played a very good social game. She's been a useful chess piece for everybody. If she sits next to Ben and Liz, it's wraps. She's getting probably every vote. And I do think, I'm thinking back to the rest of the season, right? And there has been some breadcrumbs left for us, I think, about Kenzie. And again, this could easily end with her being the losing finalist. And, not to read too much into the edit here, because obviously the edit has tricked us several times. But with Kenzie, like we heard back in episode like 2 or 3, Kenzie's dangerous. Kenzie's a huge threat. Kenzie's the one to beat. Literally Banu, when he was spilling everything way back in the season, was talking about how good Kenzie was at the game. We had a confessional from Kenzie, like I believe 2 episodes ago, where right after the TIFF vote, where she was like, I was left out of this. Like, she was crying. She's like, this is a wake up call to me that I have to get my game on and like wake up. And I feel like we've been, along with all this Ben stuff, which is under consideration for me, right? I think, if she sat at the end next to Ben, I think Ben would potentially have a hard time not voting for her, right? So I do, and we've seen her relationship with Tiffany very close. I think if she's sitting there, she probably gets Tiff's vote as well. So I do, if this is an edit for her to lose in a 6-3 vote, I think that's okay. Or what is it? It's going to be 8 people on the jury, right?
8 people, yeah.
If this is an edit for her to lose in a 6-2 or 5-3 vote, fine. I could easily see that. But I think the breadcrumbs for her to at least get to the end have been there. So I'm going to give her the second best chance. I'm curious to hear your rankings, though, for sure.
Yeah, no, my rankings align with yours. I mean, in terms of Charlie being first, Kenzie second, Maria third. And then I guess if I had to pick one over the other, I would say maybe Ben fourth over Liz, just because we've seen more of people of citing how likable Ben is. I do feel bad I do feel like Liz is the closest to drawing dead at this point. Ben would need some jury bitterness, or Ben would need, and I don't think the scenario is even possible. He would need like a Charlie and Maria final 3 with him, and then they split votes and have some. It's not going to happen.
You need like a Chris Underwood finale, like wins, like finds the idol, wins immunity, uses the idol to get out Charlie or Maria, wins fire against Charlie or Maria. Like they're like him and Liz. I think both need that type of episode in order to have any chance.
Exactly. Maria, like you said, final boss. Maria's kind of like the Jesse, where I feel like if Maria...
Not Maria. I mean, him or Liz. Yeah. Ben or Liz need that Chris Underwood episode to win. Maria, She can win if she gets there, but I think her path is uphill. So okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I agree with. I agree with your order completely. Maria, in terms of final boss status, is like, I think like Jesse at the time. I think Maria has the hardest path to get there because nobody's bringing Maria. And if Maria loses final 5, they're voting her out. So she needs to win her way to the end, whether it's the 2 immunities or 1 immunity in the fire. She's not going to get taken there. But like Jesse, I feel like she's the final boss where if she gets to the end, I feel like people respect her game where she probably could win, especially because we've unfortunately for Charlie, the one knock I have on Charlie, even though he's still my number 1 like you in the rankings, some people have said in confessionals, oh, well, Charlie, he's kind of followed Maria a little bit. He's kind of been like the little jester. Then again, he took a shot at her this week against Q and a hit. So maybe that perception is starting to change. But again, that's assuming that he's there and Maria's not. If they both somehow get there, I don't know how that happens, but if they both somehow get there, like if Maria wins her way to the end and Charlie still manages to get there, I do worry that, he might be seen as that side piece to her. Again, I think that her path is very hard, like you said. So that's why I still have her at 3. Charlie, with his amazing connections, great strategic game, positioning, and this move this week, still has him in the number 1 spot for me. And then I think for Kenzie, like you said, at number 2, I really don't think it's like a slam dunk for Charlie if Charlie and Kenzie are there together. Like, if we look at the jury votes really quickly, Dylan, and I saw Stephen Fishback tweet about this as well, like, what if it's Charlie and Kenzie there? I do think Charlie gets votes from, like, Maria and Q, and I think people like Soda and Tevin probably respect Charlie's game. I think for Kenzie, you're right, Tiffany will vote for Kenzie. I think Venus and Liz like Kenzie, so they probably would vote for her. And the one thing that we didn't see on the show that much was Hunter said in Exit Press that he and Kenzie were, like, number 1s with each other. So I think this jury is not like a slam dunk for Charlie or Kenzie. I could see them both getting a lot of votes. And to your point, it could be 5-3, maybe even like a 4-4, and the third person has to break the tie. I don't know. But I do feel like there's a lot of votes for both of them potentially. So even though Charlie's my 1 and Kenzie's 2, like you have, I don't think it's like, it's not like D last season where D was like our number 1 runaway. She gets there, she wins, whatever. I think it's a bit more close than we think.
Yeah, I think here's the thing. Right? I've seen a lot of people talking about, like, are we worried about how the rest of the cast perceives Charlie? To be honest with you, I would be more worried if Charlie wasn't so good at explaining his game in the confessionals. Like, the way that he's explained the game in confessionals, why would it be any different at Final Tribal Council? I mean, the guy's in law school. He's a Harvard guy. He's insanely intelligent. Like, he is going to be able to explain every single step, every single move, and he's going to have no issue doing that. I mean, the guy, again, he's in law school. He's going to be able to appeal to a jury, right? So I think, I think that's, to me, it's a little bit overblown that he will be, seen that way and lose because of it in the end. I think that if he gets there, he probably does have it. I would just worry about, like, people having their minds potentially made up already when they get there rather than, like, Charlie. Like, I don't know, like, Tiff, she's, again, like, Tiff, she's giving it to Kenzie. Like you said, Venus maybe would give it to Kenzie no matter what. Like, I'm more worried about that type of thing than, like, Charlie, getting to the end and, like, people don't respect his speech or believe him. Like, I think he's going to be rock solid. I think he's going to have a phenomenal final tribal if he gets there. But let's talk some scenarios, though, because I think you made a good point, right? What if Charlie and Maria both do get there? Let's talk and figure that out. How would that be possible?
So I think if Maria and Charlie get there, Maria has to win her way there, because I think if she loses the first immunity next week, final 5, I don't see how they don't just take her out right then. So she has to win. Then at final 5, Charlie has to survive at that point by probably turning on Kenzie and getting Liz and Ben to vote against Kenzie. I think, because I don't know why he would waste a vote on Liz or Ben at that point if Maria's safe. Final 4. Then what would need to happen is Maria wins her way there again, or Charlie wins, and then the other person wins fire. That's how they get there. I do think that scenario, like you mentioned, is a bit unlikely, but that's how they both get there.
And don't forget, last season, and I honestly, there was not a single situation in my head this season that was like, oh, Maria and Charlie could both be there. And then again, I felt last season going into it, a lot of people doubted that Austin would be there at the end as well, right? Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong. I think I thought that he was going to get there, but a lot of people did not think that he was going to get there. And then it was like, okay, like, he ended up getting there at the end, like, he figured it out. It's possible that they both get there, but like you said, if Maria loses, she's gone. But the other way, I guess, is like, if they put an idol back into play, maybe she finds the idol and then it doesn't matter. Maybe Charlie finds the idol and she wins immunity, or maybe she wins immunity and he finds the idol and they're both safe regardless. Um, there would be something. I know they've done it so much in the past. I don't think they're going to rehide an idol in. I feel like that we've seen so many people go out in a row with the idol that it's like the story of the idol is told. We don't need to force an idol play at Final Five. Like you gave the cast numerous opportunities to find and play an idol, and they failed at it every time. You don't need to force a correct idol play at the Final Five at this point. I think there'll probably will be a big advantage in the challenge at Final Five, which obviously is very impactful. So we'll see what that is.
Yeah.
But let's see if Maria were to win immunity, okay?
Yeah.
The easy vote is Charlie, right? But the question is like Charlie's social game is really good. Is he going to be able to pull, Liz and Ben together? We know Maria is going to be going against Charlie if he loses.
Yeah.
But is Charlie going to be able to pull together maybe a Ben and a Liz and be like, oh, you guys see, like Kenzie's a huge threat. She has Tiffany's vote. She has Venus's vote. She has this person's vote. We need to get her out. Like, of course it's possible, right?
Yeah.
Unlikely, yes. That would be the scenario, though, right? Where he probably pulls over people and pitches Kenzie as a bigger threat. And then vice versa. If Maria loses, she's done. I can't see a single way that she survives if she loses other than idol. So, but yeah, I think that's what would need to happen is like Maria would need to win. And then if Charlie's not saved by a idol that comes into play, he would have to somehow pitch Kenzie as a bigger threat and have it hit. But I don't think that's going to happen, but that would be the way.
Yeah, I think that's the most interesting scenario. Like, I think, Maria loses. We both think she's done, but the more interesting thing that happens is she wins. How does Charlie survive? Because Maria's going to go full-blown attack to try to get him out a second time, and he needs to pull together the votes either against Kenzie or, I don't know, maybe he throws Liz or Ben under the bus. Like, he has to survive somehow. And Dylan, so it's so funny because when we're talking about these scenarios, I feel like last season we were like, oh, Dee's the biggest threat. And honestly, I can't believe I'm saying this. We could even make the argument that Charlie, because of what he's done, or I guess what Maria did not do, Charlie's arguably positioned better at Final Five than Dee was, because Dee, by all accounts, should have been gone at Final Five if Jake and Katora didn't botch that completely. I know Julie was a threat, but Dee should have been gone, and she survived, and she's a great winner. But like Charlie, I think we both agree, even if Maria wins immunity, I'm not saying for a fact Charlie's gone. I feel like there's still a good chance he pulls something off against Kenzie, or I don't know, maybe he cuts Liz or Ben loose. I don't know, but I don't think it's a slam dunk if Maria wins. Charlie's dead. I feel like that just speaks to how well he's positioned.
Yeah, I think so here's the thing. I think there are similarities to Charlie and Dee's games in the sense that I think that they're both S tier, elite tier social players. Like, Dee was able to lose the final five and somehow still maneuvered her way to the final four, right? Because somehow her social game was good enough that people were overthinking it enough to screw up a vote about voting her out, right? Charlie, like you said, his social game is good enough where he's positioned pretty well that even if he loses, he could probably weasel his way out of it, right? Mm-hmm. That's what makes a great social player is like, again, and you always talk about the Adam Klein thing where he talks about that, like, if your threat level's too high, you did something wrong. And like being able to get there by either being brought or like strictly based on like social game is super impressive. And like, that's a sign of a great player. And he's put himself in that spot. Like, I think that it is possible, one, for him to weasel his way in even if he loses immunity, and two, I don't think it's out of the question that he gets potentially brought even, right? Mm. That's the other thing. So, and I'm trying to think who last season D1 final immunities. So it was a wrap basically. Once she won that, we knew it was over. But yeah, it's gonna be super interesting. It really is. I think I know that I personally really wanted Q to stay. But again, that would have ended up costing us Charlie. And the fact that we have Charlie and Maria both here at Final Five is phenomenal. I mean, that whole scene that was edited with them going back and forth, talking about potentially blindsiding each other was one of the best edited scenes in the new era.
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal. And the fact that they cannot get each other out is fantastic. So
Yeah.
curious to see how that battle ends. But I
The
like
one
bringing that into the finale for sure.
the one other scenario I want to talk about before we head out is essentially now Final Four. And again, this changes based on whether Maria's is there or whether she's not there. But at Final Four, a lot of things can happen based on who we think people are going to take. Now, last season we were like, oh well, people are going to take Jake, people will take Katora, and what happens? Dylan D wins, and she's like, nah, I'll take Austin and I'll still win. And she took Austin and she still won. So this season, it's like, yeah, whoever wins will take Liz or take Ben, but you really never know. And I have a theory, Dylan. In this new era, we've seen two different final immunity challenges. For the odd number seasons, so 41, 43, 45, we've seen the whole thing where you're balancing a ball on like a structure and you have to navigate that path. But for the even seasons, what have we seen? We've seen Samotion. And like we saw with Romeo, anybody can win Samotion. So it would not surprise me if Liz or Ben win their first challenge next week. And they could take each other. And we could see a scenario where Charlie and Kenzie or Maria and Kenzie or whatever combination you want to say of our top three choices are fighting it out in fire. So I think it's really interesting because anybody can win that potential Samotion challenge, and we'll see what happens about who they bring. And I will say before I turn it back to you for your thoughts, if Charlie somehow gets taken to the end, I'm going to be in awe because that's almost like in 30 and 39 where Nora won the challenge and she took Tommy. I'm like, you're taking Tommy? So it's like, imagine if Charlie gets brought. But what are your thoughts?
I think so. Look, the very simple explanation for them showing this Ben Kenzie stuff could literally just be Ben wins final immunity and takes Kenzie with him, right? Like that could be it, So I do think that Ben is very live to win a challenge. We haven't seen it all year, but like he got kind of close last week, and like you never know. Like Samotion is just a complete crapshoot. Nobody's ever practiced it in your life unless you're building it, which nobody is. I don't know how you build that, but nobody's done it in their life. It's not a type of thing where like any specific skill set could be like insanely good at it. Although I would say like a very chaotic person with little focus would not be good at it. I don't really feel like anybody left like screams would be bad at this, except maybe Liz. But yeah, anybody's live to win some motion if it is that. But who knows? Maybe it won't be that.
Yeah, I mean, actually, you brought up a really great point, and I would not be surprised next week if the foreshadowing that we've seen is Ben, after all that Kenzie's done for him, takes Kenzie, and then Kenzie wins, and then you see Charlie and Liz fighting it out in fire, or Charlie and Maria. So we'll see what happens. My last question for you, really quickly, is I know Q said in Exit Press that he was going to fire. Do we know what people's fire making ability is that are left in the game? Because I truly have no idea who's going to fire, who's not going to fire, and what we should expect.
So everybody that Q said was good at fire is already on the jury. So I'm guessing that none of them are standouts. It seems like somebody made a comment in this episode about Maria being really good at fire. So maybe she's the one to beat there. But I think that's all we've really heard.
Okay, so yeah, so I mean, again, unless we're going to see it for the first time next week, we've never seen a thing where it's like, oh, we're not going to bring this person because, they're going to fire, or like, I'm going to send them to fire to beat the best person because they're, the biggest threat there. So we'll have to see what happens. I think in the end, Dylan, what I would say is it's been a really great season, and I think you and I would agree that I think we would be the happiest if Charlie won the season, probably the best player this season. And obviously for you in the draft, you would be very happy if Charlie won. I would also I'd be happy with the Kenzie win. And I think I would even be fine with the Maria win as well, even though she's kind of fumbled these last couple weeks. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think you and I would be pretty let down if there was a Ben or Liz win, but hopefully will not happen. And I think based on our results, I'm ready to sit here and say probably the best new era season. And I hope for 47, which is filming right now, I hope Jeff took notes, and I hope they continue this trend. I mean, Dylan, it's almost funny how there's been no advantages, no idols even played correctly at all, and no journeys, no backstories, and it's been the best season we've seen in a long time. So, I mean, coincidence? I think not.
Yeah, not a lot of advantages this season. Let's hit some questions. There's some good stuff in the chat here.
Sure.
From Roy Jolly, he wants to know if Charlie takes Maria to the end, does he win? I think there's no scenario where he takes Maria. I would say, like, if he ends up sitting, let's do this. If he ends up sitting next to Maria, what are Charlie's chances? I think he has a decent shot to be there. I think it would be, I legitimately think it's a 50-50 chance if he sits next to Maria. I think we've heard a lot about them thinking that like he was Maria's like puppet, but again, I'm irrationally high on the way Charlie would be able to explain himself. I really think he's going to be a great jury explainer, I should say. His speech is going to be fantastic. I think based on what we've heard from him in confessionals, I have to trust that he could literally explain every single move and every aspect of his game. The question would be differentiating it from Maria. It's not easy. So he would have to have some kind of difference from Maria, because at the end of the day, Maria did have the Tiffany move, which was a big move, and I think he's going to get a lot of respect. I still feel like Charlie may have the likability factor though over Maria by a decent amount. Like I said, I think Charlie's lapping her in social games, so I think Maria may have him in strategy, but Charlie definitely I think has her in social. So I think that could potentially garner votes. I'm going to say yes, he would beat Maria in the end, but it is close.
Yeah, to answer Roy's question, I can't say for a fact that he does win. Do I think that he has a chance? I do, because I think, to Dylan's point, Charlie has more likability and probably a better social game than Maria does. And if we look at the jury right now, because if we're going with a scenario that Charlie takes Maria and it's Charlie, Maria, and one of Liz or Ben, because in a perfect world, our final three is Charlie, Maria, and Kenzie, but I don't think there's any scenario where that happens. So assuming it's Charlie and Maria, and then you add Ben there or you add Liz there, basically at that point, Dylan, I do think Charlie has more friends on the jury, because we know at the current jury makeup, Q will vote for Maria, but over Charlie. But I think Charlie will get Venus's votes, probably gets Tiffany's votes, and then I would say Ben or Liz, whoever's not sitting with him, would get that vote for Maria, and then probably Kenzie as well. So I think if he takes Maria and he can explain his game and say like, yeah, you may have thought that I was Maria's puppet, but like I took a direct shot at her. She was gonna. By the way, guys, she was gonna go if she didn't win that challenge. She was gonna go, and she saved herself, and I took the next best shot against Q. I think that wins him a lot of points. So I think, to Roy's question, I do think Charlie can win if he takes Maria. Does he do it? Like you said, I don't think he does it, because I think after she went against him, but he can win.
Yeah, I agree with that. Jay wants to know, is Kenzie the person who Jeff said is going to be the person whose personality lets them down and makes them not win, as he referred to his opening monologue of the season? I think, we all thought it's funny because there are so many characters on the season that were so like out there and wild that we thought that he was directly talking about somebody and it was a hint. At this point, I think that it was probably just included in there because of the type of season it was about to be. It may not have been directly pointing to anybody at the end. I don't really think that it's going to end up, being pointed towards anyone at the end at this point with Venus out and Q out. So I don't think it's Kenzie, and I don't think that there's a reason why Kenzie why her personality would let her down in the end, because she seems to be extremely well liked. So
yeah, basically, I think I'm at the point where maybe the myth is dead, because we thought it was Banu, we thought it was Venus, and we thought it was Q, and Jeff was not talking about any of them, obviously. So I think you're right that the myth could be dead. And I disagree. I really think that Kenzie has the personality where she could easily be Charlie potentially. So I don't think Jeff was hinting or referring to her with the editing. The only person, if it's not a red herring, because it easily could be, the only other person that it could have been hinting at is potentially Liz. And I say that not because of the meltdown, but because of the whole Tevin vote that she pulled off. She still has not gotten any credit for that. And I could see her get to the end and be like, I made this move against Tevin, and people are like, but did you really pull it off, Liz? So I could see a scenario where Liz, you could talk about the meltdown, talk about she's a millionaire, whatever it is, but it's like, we saw that confessional where she was like, no one's giving me credit and I want credit. Maybe that's what Jeff was talking about. But if it's not that, I agree with you, Dylan, in the chat that it could just have been like a general comment.
Yeah, it could be Liz. I do think that that's a decent theory, but also like I do think it was mostly just a statement at the end, that at the beginning, that doesn't pertain to anything. Yeah. All right, I think it's all we got for the podcast this week. But we'll be back next week to recap the finale. There is a chance that I am around Wednesday night, but would be great if we could get our first live show right after on a Wednesday this year. But TBD. It's not confirmed yet. So
Okay.
we'll have to see. We'll let you guys know. If not, we'll be back probably normal Sunday. So stay tuned for something there. And I'm excited for the finale Wednesday.
Dylan, I'm looking forward to it. This time next week, we're going to know who wins Survivor 46. We're going to break down the whole finale, break down the whole season, where we think it probably, ranks in the new era or ranks overall, and so much more good stuff. Plus, we're going to have our preview, obviously, based on like what we see from Survivor 47, which is filming right now. So I can't wait for next week.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I'm super excited to see that preview. But yeah, can't wait.
Yeah. So, like Dylan said earlier, for the penultimate time this season, grab your torches and head back to camp.
Good night.